They're rolling in from Washington, all geared up and grim. Helicopters circling low, no one invited them. They came for war, but what they found were bubbles, drums, and flare. A unicorn with tearful eyes and glitter in her hair. How's ICE gonna handle Portland when the dancers hit the street? When the naked riders serenade in nothing but bare feet? You can't fight joy with pepper spray, it slips right through the plan. So how's ICE gonna handle Portland when the laughter hits the fan? They came to make us tremble with masks and heavy gear, but Portland answers differently with mischief, pride, and beer. A dragon led the marching band, a furry waved a sign that said love's the law we're living by and joy's a protest line. How's ICE gonna handle Portland when the furries fill the square? When the unicorn cries rainbow tears and the tuba shakes the air? You can't cuff color, you can't bind song, you can't outlaw the band. So how's ICE gonna handle Portland when the laughter hits the fan? You bring your shields and tasers, we'll bring the horns and paint. You got the fear in uniforms, but we've got what you ain't. It's not defiance born of hate, it's courage dressed in play. And every joke you try to crush will bloom again next day. How's ICE gonna handle Portland when the beat won't fade away? When the dancers march through tear gas clouds and still refuse to sway? The question that goes through the streets from Fremont to the sand: why the violence, why the fear? Can you still call this our land? So roll your trucks and flex your might and watch the crowd expand. You can't arrest what makes us free, you'll never understand. How's ICE gonna handle Portland when the laughter takes a stand?
Welcome to PDX Progressive Talk Radio on KBOO, where we tell the truth with our whole chest, and we do it with receipts, not vibes. Tonight, we're talking about security, and I don't mean the thoughts and prayers kind. I mean, what does security mean when your job isn't secure, and neither is your neighborhood? What happens when layoffs become the new norm and enforcement becomes the new public policy? And what do we do right here in Portland when the ground shifts under our feet? Because here's the thing. You can't budget your way out of a system that's designed to keep you unstable. So we're going to connect the dots. Mass layoffs into 2026, ICE and federal enforcement violence, and what local leadership like the new city council president, James Dunphy, means for the shape of civic power here in Portland. And yes, I'm going to be saying the quiet part out loud, so buckle up. I brought snacks and accountability. You're listening to 90.7 FM KBOO Portland.
Snow on the streets tonight, January cuts through the skin. She had groceries in the backseat with a dog waiting quietly, and a future she still believed in. 37 years old, a mother's heart, just trying to get back home. No sirens asking mercy, no warning in the voice. They say it happened fast, they said it was a threat, but fear She was not collateral, she was not allowed to live, to drive, to make it home alive. This is ICE with a license to kill. This is silence signed in Washington. This is what happens when cruelty becomes policy and fear becomes a weapon. Trump talks of walls and strength while bodies hit the ground. Power without conscience is violence dressed as law. Don't call it security when the innocent pay. Don't preach about freedom with blood in the way. She was not resisting, she was not armed, she was not your enemy. She was a woman in her own country, and you pulled the trigger anyway. Her name was Renee, and we will not forget. You don't bury the truth by burying the dead. Her name was Renee, and the streets remember her name. If justice won't rise, then the people will scream. Say her name until the lies fall apart. Say her name until the system Her name was Renee. Her name was Renee.
Let's start with work because everything else rides on it, right? Rent, food, childcare, healthcare, your whole nervous system. Mass layoffs don't end when the headlines move on. They get normalized, and that normalization is in its own kind of violence. Not the dramatic kind that makes the national news for 24 hours, the slow kind that empties your savings account, shrinks your life, and tells you to be resilient while CEOs get bonuses for right-sizing. Companies say they're restructuring like it's an IKEA furniture piece, but somehow the workers are always missing the screws. When people say layoffs, everyone pictures a tech worker with a kombucha and a standing desk. But in the Portland metro area, the pain doesn't stay inside one industry. It spills into the larger community. When a big employer trims, it hits the entire ecosystem. The contractor who was booked out for 3 months suddenly has massive cancellations. The photographer and the graphic designer lose reoccurring clients. The small shop owner, they see fewer weekday sales consistently. And that daycare gets fewer and fewer enrollments. Layoffs don't just cut your paycheck, they cut circulation. And when the money stops circulating, communities start holding their breath. This isn't a tech story, it's a local economy story. Now, AI is another story that businesses are using, but don't get me wrong. It is a real investment where companies are pouring money into automation tools and new systems. But here's the trick. A lot of executives are using AI like a magic wand to make old decisions sound futuristic. Some of those cuts were already on that eraser board in the war room, right? Budget tightening, reorgs, shareholder pressure, and the mentality of do more with less that we've lived with for decades. AI just becomes a shiny excuse you can say on an earnings call without admitting the plan to squeeze labor. Which, by the way, I have an issue with, because I have an MBA and I went to college. I have a bachelor's and an MBA. And while some of our training had to do with why business is in business, my vision of why we are in business or businesses exist is for the greater good of humanity and society. But over the past 30, 40 years, it's become more and more that a business exists to make a profit. And to me, that's wrong. Because if the only reason you're in business is to make a profit, you aren't helping anyone. There is literally no reason for your business to exist. If you are not in business to help the greater community with their messaging, with their product development, with the safety of their product on the community, with how their product works to better lives, right? It's kind of like the government right now is all about, well, we're using your tax dollars to deport people and to invade their homes and to invade their schools and to give the military industrial complex almost $1 trillion. I didn't ask for that. I'm not paying taxes for that. My taxes, I pay for the government as its definition is supposed to govern the masses, but our tax dollars are supposed to be meant to better our lives. That's why we pay taxes, not so they can give money to Halliburton or Northrop Grumman or any of the other contractors. And I'm a former federal civilian contractor, but I worked in military education. I worked for colleges. I didn't work for these war machines. The thing was, our tax dollars are supposed to be there to support us, the American people, right? And so for decades, the government has used defense as a way to suck up all the funding instead of, publicly funded education, publicly funded college, publicly funded healthcare, the things that support the people. The reason why we pay taxes, the reason why we have quote unquote representatives that we vote for to carry on our agenda, to go and represent us, right? I'm sorry, but unless we're having a war every 2 years, my money does not go, I don't want my money going to the Defense Department for $1 trillion budget. That's not right. And then ICE is sitting here with almost that much for just them. And the new budget that Congress is trying to put through gives them another $75 billion. I'll be talking about ICE more here. I got off of my script. I'm going to go back, but this kills me. So when you hear AI made us do it, that translates into plain English, plain language, if you will. They chose profit protection over the stability of their workers, and that's wrong. When we were taxing corporations for 90% after $100 million in the 50s and 60s, they invested in their employees, they invested in innovation, they invested in R&D, they invested in their communities. And they're not doing that now. They're investing in shareholder pockets in their own. Layoffs ripple beyond the tech world, okay? And it moves into retail, in logistics, manufacturing, healthcare, admin, media. The whole thing across the board feels it. Retail cuts reduce hours, which reduces benefits, which increases churn. Logistics get optimized, which means fewer workers moving more volume, Manufacturing gets restructured and automated. Healthcare admin gets trimmed, and then everyone wonders why systems are slower and staff is burned out. Media gets downsized, and the public gets less local reporting, which makes it easier for power to act without scrutiny. So, we're not dealing with a wave in one corner of the economy. We're dealing with an era of instability as a business model. And that is unstable. That is unsustainable. Instability is being sold for efficiency. Layoffs weaken organizing power and keep wages disciplined. Here's the part that they don't say out loud. Layoffs don't save money. They change behavior. When people are scared, they don't negotiate. They don't push back. They don't unionize. They don't ask for raises, and they don't report unsafe conditions. They keep their heads down and hope that they aren't next. That's what wage discipline really means. A workforce too anxious to demand fair pay, predictable schedules, or basic respect. And when organizing power drops, wages stagnate and profits climb. Not because workers become less valuable, but because fear becomes a management tool. And when economic security collapses, people become more vulnerable to every other kind of power, landlords, employers, and yes, enforcement. Because when your life is unstable, you're easier to control, and they know that. Which is why we have to talk about what public safety is starting to mean in this country.
We sang for an day on a January day. Shot down in Minneapolis, federal agents wouldn't say. Why a woman in her Honda had to die that way. We lit our candles, raised our voices to the winter air. Said not one more, Lord, not one more. Saturday morning came around. Alex Pretty fell without a sound. We saved lives in the ICU, knew how to heal. Now it's gone and they won't let us see what's real. Phone in one hand, filming what was going down. Reached out to help a woman they'd shoved to the ground. They pepper sprayed her, threw him to the street. Shot him while he was pinned beneath their feet. Not one more. We said not one more. But here we stand, counting again. How many names we gonna add before the end? Not one more. You cried not one more. But deathbed will break, scatter in fear. While a tear gas falls and the trove disappears. But I'm putting down my anger, reaching out my hand. 'Cause divided we will fall across this land. We're neighbors, we're brothers, somebody's daughter, somebody's son. About one more means all of us are none. We're stronger together, standing as one, not one more, never one more. This time we mean it. Hear us say, we're standing together. Come on, not one more, never one more. But they're counting on chaos to silence the crowd. While we're standing together, peaceful and loud. Not one more, never one
The Corporation for Public Broadcasting was shut down, and that contributed to a lot of our funding. So if you are so inclined and you would like to send us a couple dollars, feel free to go over to kboo.org and click on that button, the donate button, or you can go to the app. We have an app on Android and iOS, and there's a little donate button in there, or you can always send us a check if the text stuff is a little frou-frou at 20 Southeast 8th Avenue in Portland, Oregon 97214. And again, we are volunteer powered, member powered, and we really appreciate any help you can offer. Thank you for listening to 90.7 KBOO Portland. ICE, DHS, and the meaning of public safety. There's a story we're being sold in America right now, that more enforcement equals more safety. But what happens when enforcement looks like fear? And what happens when people believe they can be stopped, harmed, or killed and nobody's held accountable? I want to name two stories that have been circulating in the public conversation. They are Alex Preddy and Renee Cole Good. Regardless of where you land politically, here's what should unite us. In a democracy, public power must be held accountable to the public, period. And due process is not a luxury item for people who can't afford better lawyers. It's the minimum standard for civilization. Accountability isn't a vibe. It's a system. And if a system can use force, then the public has the right to know what happened, when it happened, and who's responsible for explaining it. Body cameras are one tool. But here's the catch. A camera is only accountability if the footage is preserved, released on a clear timeline, and reviewed by people who don't have a stake in the outcome. Because if an agency controls the footage, controls the narrative, controls the investigation, and then asks us to trust their conclusion, that's not oversight. That is PR. Real accountability is clear policy on when cameras must be on, consequences for when they're not, transparency about what's released and why, and independent investigations, not the "we investigated ourselves and found we did great" special. So a body camera without transparency is like a necklace, right? It just sits there. It doesn't do anything. What would it take for you to trust the outcome of an investigation? And when accountability is weak, trust collapses. And that changes how communities respond to every public system. And then if we go and look at local trust, heavy-handed enforcement that damages cooperation with all public safety systems. That's something that people miss. When enforcement is heavy-handed, it doesn't just affect the people targeted, it changes the behavior of whole communities. If families believe that any interaction with authorities can spiral into a detention, violence, or bureaucratic nightmare, they stop calling for help. They hesitate to report crimes, and that has happened here in the area. They avoid being witnesses. They don't seek services. They don't show up to hospitals. And we've been hearing reports about that as well. They don't cooperate with investigations. They keep their heads down. And that doesn't make a city safer. It makes it quieter. And quiet isn't the same thing as safe. Quiet is what happens when people don't believe in the system that supposedly protects them. This is a paradox. Enforcement that claims to keep order can actually make communities less able to prevent harm. Because trust is the oxygen public safety runs on. When trust dies, harm hides. If you were scared of the system, who would you call for help? And when trust collapses, everything escalates faster because fear is gasoline. Escalation is what happens when force becomes the first language instead of the last resort. When agencies show up aggressively, with intimidation, speed, secrecy, and ambiguous identification, communities don't experience that as safety. They experience it as a threat, as they should. And when people feel threatened, they react like human beings. They run, they resist, they freeze, they shout, they record, they gather, they panic. That's not because they're criminals. It's because fear hijacks the body. It increases adrenaline and the energy. Then the agency points to the reaction. It's like dealing with a narcissist, right? They poke you until you react. And then the agency points to the reaction as proof that they were justified. That's the loop. Aggression creates fear. Fear creates reaction. Reaction is used to justify more aggression. If we want fewer flashpoints, we need fewer tactics that predictably create flashpoints. Safety is de-escalation, clarity, communication, and proportional response, not dominance theater. Aggression creates the chaos it claims to prevent. Have you ever calmed down because someone came at you harder? And once escalation becomes routine, dehumanization becomes easy because it's hard to justify harm against people you still see as fully human. You see, dehumanization is how harm becomes normal. It's how otherwise ordinary systems start doing extraordinary damage. It starts with language, like illegals, animals. You hear this from Dear Leader, right? Illegals, animals, invaders, bad people, collateral, just a suspect, just another statistic. Once you reduce the human being to a category, it becomes easier to treat them like a problem to remove, not a person with rights. And I saw an episode, and I don't remember, I think it was it was like NBC News or something, where they had a former ICE official on saying that the Border Patrol people don't look at people coming over the border illegally, quote unquote, as humans. They are bodies, was the quote. She said they are bodies. I'll find the show and stream some of it for you for next time. Dehumanization doesn't stop at an intended target. It spreads. Because when the public watches one group get treated as disposable, the lesson is simple. You're only safe while you're useful and compliant. If we want a society that doesn't spiral into cruelty, we have to defend the principle that every person counts. Not because they're perfect, but because rights are meaningless if they only apply to the popular. When one group becomes disposable, everyone becomes vulnerable. Who benefits when we stop seeing each other as human? If we want real security, not fear, not control, then accountability, trust, de-escalation, and human dignity aren't optional. They are the foundation. Accountability is how power stays answerable. Trust is how community stays safe. De-escalation is how conflict stays survivable. And human dignity is how we keep the whole thing from turning into a machine that harms people because it's easier. If a government can harm people without oversight, that's not safety. That's power practicing on the public. So I invite you guys, you can email me at pdx.progressivetv@gmail.com and tell me, what does security mean in your life? A paycheck, housing, rights, body safety? And what would it take for you to trust an agency with force? Now, let's bring this home, because national policy always lands locally, and Portland's leadership matters, not because politicians are saviors, but because local government sets the temperature for what gets tolerated.
Hey kid, don't ever let them get inside your head. They'll tell you what to do in life instead of everything you know that you could get. Don't let them guide your life towards regret. I'll fight for what I love with every breath. My past is filled with things I won't forget. I use them all to push me to my best. So treat the worst of times just like a test. If only I could go back in time, I'd tell myself that everything will end up alright. Just push yourself, test yourself, figure out what you like, and find your limits, don't be rigid, always work towards a prime. Surround yourself with open minds, people can change your life. A few friends with intent can help you feel alive. Find a passion, take some action, and with a little time, just be patient, make a statement, try to enjoy your life. They'll try to kick you while you're down. They wanna rise up while you drown. They wanna fill your head with doubt. They're silently scared that you'll figure it out. I'll make it look like I'm losing, won't bother hiding my bruises. And when they finally think you're wounded, then it's your chance to be ruthless. They don't wanna see me care. Anytime I make some progress, I can see that they compare. I think everyone's against me, maybe something in the air. Am I paranoid? I swear a void is forming and they're scared I walk a straight path. Not many can say that. I like to play fast, cross me and there's payback. You better pray that I don't see your face at
any place that I go, I know you hate that. I've been doing fine, I'm not wasting any more time. I live for the fight and the climb, and I think that the pain that's deep inside is what defines. So I won't give up, I'm gonna make it to the top. I don't care what's in my way, I swear I'm never gonna stop. I could fall flat on my face and I swear I will get back up, cause I don't deserve a thing and the road ahead is tough. They'll try to kick you while you're down, they wanna rise up while you drown. They wanna fill your head with doubt, they're silently scared that you'll figure it out. I'll make it look like I'm losing, won't bother hiding my bruises. And when they finally think you're wounded, then it's your chance to be ruthless.
You're listening to 90.7 FM KBOO Portland. Portland is in a political reset in a lot of ways. And leadership roles inside the city council shape what gets prioritized, what gets heard, and what gets delayed until the public is just too tired to fight. Now, I'm not here to crown anybody, but I'm here to set expectations. And one name that you should know right now is James Dunphy, the new president of the Portland City Council. And we're setting expectations because in 2026, neutral is not a governing strategy. It's a decision to let the loudest power win by default. And I'm not cool with that, right? So Portland City Council president isn't just holding the gavel. The job includes helping set the agenda with the city auditor and routing items through committees or to the full council. So leadership affects what gets heard, what gets stalled, and whether the public gets a government that's coordinated or a room full of crossed arms. Portlanders didn't vote for a government makeover because we were bored. We voted for a city that functions, that delivers services, communicates clearly, and treats neighbors, treats the people of Portland like neighbors, not nuisances, which is what it feels like sometimes. Any of you know this. And if the new system doesn't deliver transparency and stability, the public will keep pulling that fire alarm until it does. So here's the part that people get twisted about Portland. When the federal government enforcement ramps up, folks either assume that the city is powerless or they assume that the city can just order the feds around like it's customer service. No offense to cover customer service people. People like to order you guys around, and that's not right. But this is neither. Portland can't control federal agencies, but Portland can control how the city participates and what it tolerates locally and what tools it uses to protect the public trust. Oregon's sanctuary laws basically say that the local government can't help enforce federal immigration laws without a judge's signed order. That's not a vibe. That is written guidance from the Oregon Department of Justice. And the Portland Police Bureau has said this plainly in its own public materials, that they don't enforce federal immigration laws and they don't participate in immigration enforcement. So when people ask, why isn't the Portland Police Bureau doing more? Well, the plain answer is it's because it's not their lane. And Oregon law draws the lane lines, like the freeway. That's the best way I could put it. Imagine the freeway, right? Federal enforcement is over here in the left lane causing damage, and the Portland Police Bureau is over here in the right, and neither should the two meet. It's frustrating sometimes. It really is, especially when the ICE people and the quote-unquote officials are abusing the public and the police do nothing. That's the irritating part, and that's where this argument comes to fruition. Why isn't Portland Police Bureau doing anything? Why aren't they protecting the people of Portland? That's what I don't understand. But the main job of police is to protect property. And that building is registered or rented to, leased by a federal entity. So the police's job is to protect city property. You would think their job would be to protect the citizens, but it's technically not. It's to protect the property. And the feds are in another lane. They're in the left lane, wrecking everything. At least that's my opinion. I invoke my First Amendment right. So now, here's where Portland does have some choices. The local city government has levers, right, at their avail. They're not sexy levers, but they're real ones, and the city can use them. So one lever is the city council's action plus public demands. For example, Portland has a public resolution on the record reinforcing transparency and calling for law enforcement personnel to clearly identify themselves when interacting with the public. Because if people can't tell who's who, then accountability evaporates. Another lever the cities has, another lever is the city's broader posture, like the Protect Portland initiative, which is literally Portland putting a stake in the ground saying we're not consenting to unconstitutional militarization. We're not pretending unidentified federal action is normal, and we're preparing to respond. And then there's a lever the people didn't expect that Portland has: the city code and land use enforcement. Portland has publicly documented steps against the local U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement facility around land use violations tied to detention limits. And that's not symbolic. That's the city using its own rules and processes. Go Portland. This isn't abstract. There's very recent reporting that Keith Wilson called for ICE to leave Portland after federal agents used tear gas, pepper balls, and rubber bullets at a protest. And he also raised the idea of the city imposing fees tied to the use of chemical agents. And counselors have publicly pushed the mayor to use the tools on the books, including penalties, fees, and enforcement mechanisms, rather than letting it sit in the strongly worded statement drawer. So yes, federal action collides with local priorities, but local officials still choose whether they, 1, set standards for transparency, identification, and accountability, 2, use city code and land use enforcement where it applies, and 3, speak clearly to the public about what happened and what the city is doing next. Here's the bottom line. Portland can't control the feds, but Portland can decide on what kind of city we are when the pressure hits. Are we coordinated, lawful, and protective of public trust, or are we quiet, confused, and reactive? Local government can't fire federal agents, but it can stop pretending it has no tools to combat what they're doing. When federal enforcement escalates, Portland isn't powerless, but the tools are local. City code, permits, public transparency demands, and clear boundaries on what local agencies will and won't do under Oregon law. The question for local leadership is not, can we control the feds? It's, will we use every lawful tool we have to protect residents and the public trust? This is why security can't just mean enforcement. Security is stability, services, transparency, and the rights that still exist when things get tense. If the public can't trust the system can't keep anyone safe. And yes, this is me formally inviting Council President Dunphy to come on the show. Not for a fluff interview, for a real one. What does security mean to you when working people feel unsafe economically and civically? So I want you to think about a few things. Know your rights. Document what you can safely. Support legal aid groups. And don't let fear isolate you. Fear loves silence. If you take one thing away from tonight, let it be this. Security isn't something you feel because someone told you to calm down. Security is something you build with policy, accountability, wages that match reality, and a government that answers to the people. They want you tired. They want you isolated. They want you blaming your neighbor. But Portland, we've never been good at staying quiet when something stinks. Stay loud, stay human, and take care of each other. This is PDX Progressive Talk Radio on KBOO. I'm Sherry. Oh, and on a special note, this show will no longer be a morning show. It will be a once a month, the first Wednesday of every month at 6 o'clock. So we're right after the news on the first Wednesday of the month. Maybe at a later date, we might go back to daytime, but for right now, we need to be back to once a month. And I really appreciate all of you, your messages, your emails, your reaching out. You're wonderful, and you have no idea how much your support has helped me through the past almost year now. Thank you. And again, you can follow me on Blue Sky. We are under PDX Progressive Talk Radio. So you can go over to Blue Sky and follow me there. There's a lot going on. Have a great month. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting was shut down, and that contributed to a lot of our funding. So if you are so inclined and you would like to send us a couple dollars, feel free to go over to kboo.org and click on that button, the donate button, or you can go to the app. We have an app on Android and iOS, and there's a little donate button in there, or you can always send us a check if the tech stuff is a little frou-frou. At 20 Southeast 8th Avenue in Portland, Oregon 97214. And again, we are volunteer powered, member powered, and we really appreciate any help you can offer. Thank you for listening to 90.7 KBOO Portland.
Tearing down the walls of your sacred disguise. It's a rigged game, justice paralyzed. They hold the shield while we bleed on the floor. Time to rise up and settle the score. Behind badges protected by law. No accountability despite what we saw. Another victim down, they're walking away. Qualified immunity lets them slay. It's a system designed to bury the pain. The guilty thrive while the innocent pay. They're untouchable, invincible, picking a fight. But the tide's turning, we demand what's right. No more shields for your crimes. No more justice means you pay your dues. Qualified immunity, we refuse. We refuse. From the city streets to the courtroom chairs, it's a rigged deck. No judge cares. Victims cry out, but the system's deaf. Too many lives have been stolen, left for dead. Law's not a weapon, it's meant to protect. But they twist it, abuse it, what do we expect? We're breaking the cycle, tearing the veil. No immunity when justice prevails. Every life matters, every soul's real. This law protects the abusers for real. Tear it down, start anew. What would justice say if it spoke true? No more shields for your crimes. No more hiding behind lies. Justice means you pay your dues. Qualified immunity, we refuse. When the people decide, truth is a force and it won't be denied. The shield is cracking, the time is near. Qualified immunity, make it disappear. Let's make it retroactive. When the people decide,